The rain came down in sheets that October night, turning Ashford University's brick pathways into rivers of lamplight. Eliza Hartwell pressed herself against the ivy-covered wall of Lawrence Hall. Her dark hoodie soaked through her breath, forming small clouds in the cold air. 3 weeks of planning had led to this moment. Every security rotation memorized, every blind spot mapped, every creaking floorboard in the dean's outer office cataloged in her mind. The lock gave way with a soft click. Liz slipped inside, closing the door with the care of someone who'd learned early that survival meant being invisible. Water dripped from her clothes onto the marble floor, but she couldn't help that now. She had 20 minutes before the next patrol. The hallway stretched before her, lined with portraits of distinguished alumni and benefactors. Their painted eyes seemed to follow her as she moved toward the administrative suite. She'd been a student at Ashford for 3 years, but she'd never felt like she belonged among these names, these legacies. She was here on scholarship, a fact that some people never let her forget. The dean's office door was locked as expected, but Liz had prepared for that too. The credit card trick her foster brother had taught her years ago still worked on older locks. 3 seconds and she was in. The office smelled of leather and old books. Moonlight filtered through the tall windows, casting long shadows across the mahogany desk. Liz pulled out her phone, using its flashlight to navigate to the filing cabinets along the back wall. She needed records of the scholarship fund distributions, specifically where the money was actually going. Her investigation for the Ashford Chronicle had uncovered discrepancies. Large ones. The kind that could ruin careers. The kind that could also get a scholarship student expelled if she got caught. Her hands were steady as she rifled through the files. Finance, faculty, grants, their student services. She pulled out the folder, her heart pounding as she began photographing pages with her phone. Numbers that didn't add up. Transfers to accounts she couldn't trace. Names she recognized from the board of trustees. She was so focused that she didn't hear the other door open. "Well," a voice said from behind her, smooth and maddeningly familiar. "This is unexpected." Liz spun around her phone's light, catching the figure in the doorway. Sebastian Blackwood stood there in dark jeans and a rain-dampened jacket. His hands raised slightly as if to show he meant no harm. His dark hair was wet, pushed back from his face, and his expression was a mixture of surprise and something else she couldn't quite read. Of all the people, of all the goddamn people in this entire university. "What are you doing here?" Liz hissed quickly, pocketing her phone. "I could ask you the same thing, Hartwell." Seb stepped into the office, closing the door behind him. "But I think the answer is pretty obvious. We're both somewhere we shouldn't be." "We are not the same," Liz said, her voice low and sharp. "I'm here because someone needs to hold this place accountable. You're probably here covering up for Daddy's latest donation or making sure your name stays on the dean's list despite what?" Seb's jaw tightened. "Despite the fact that I actually earned my grades? Or are you still bitter about that article from freshman year?" The article. Of course he'd bring up the article. 2 years ago, Sebastian Blackwood, then a sophomore mentor, already building his perfect resume, had written a scathing editorial about her investigative piece on legacy admissions. He'd called it sensationalized journalism that prioritizes controversy over facts, and suggested she learn the difference between reporting and revenge. She'd responded by exposing how his father's position as a federal judge had gotten him preferential treatment in 3 different classes, how professors went easier on him, how his internship at a prestigious law firm had been handed to him without the competitive application process everyone else went through. They'd been enemies ever since. Public, undeniable enemies. The kind of rivalry that everyone on campus knew about. "I'm not doing this with you right now," Liz said, turning back to the filing cabinet. "Just take whatever you came for and pretend you never saw me." "It's not that simple." Seb moved closer, and she could smell rain and something woodsy, his cologne probably expensive. "What are you looking for?" "The scholarship fund." Liz froze. "How do you know about that?" "Because I've been tracking the same discrepancies." He pulled out his own phone, showing her a screen full of financial records. Someone's been embezzling from multiple funds. Not just scholarships, research grants, student activities. It's been going on for years. She stared at the phone, then at him. "Why would you care about embezzlement? Your family probably has more money than this entire endowment." You don't know anything about what I care about, Seb said quietly. There was something in his voice, a crack in the perfect facade he always wore. But before Liz could respond, light flooded the room. Well, said Professor William Crane, standing in the doorway with his hand on the light switch. It seems we have a situation. Liz's blood turned to ice. Professor Crane, Associate Dean of Finance Advisor to half the student government, one of the most influential people on campus, looked at them with an expression that was disturbingly calm. He was in his mid-50s with steel gray hair and sharp features that reminded Liz of a bird of prey. Professor Crane, Seb said, recovering quickly. His voice was steady, authoritative. I can explain. I'm sure you can, Mr. Blackwood. Crane stepped into the office, closing the door behind him with a soft click that sounded like a cell door locking. You always have an explanation, don't you? Just like your father. Very eloquent, very convincing. His eyes shifted to Liz. And Miss Hartwell, the Chronicle's star investigative reporter. I've been reading your work. Quite thorough. A bit too thorough, perhaps. Liz's mind raced through possibilities. Deny everything. Run. Argue that they had a right to public information. But Crane's expression told her that none of those options would work. I should call security. Crane continued, walking slowly around the desk. Breaking and entering, attempted theft of confidential documents. That would be immediate expulsion for you, Miss Hartwell. Your scholarship revoked. He paused, looking at Seb. And you, Mr. Blackwood, while your father's position might protect you from the worst of it, but it would certainly be embarrassing. Then call them, Liz said, lifting her chin, and I'll tell them why we're here. I'll tell them about the money that's disappearing from funds meant for students who actually need it. Crane smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. And you think they'd believe you as a scholarship student with a reputation for inflammatory journalism caught breaking into the dean's office? Please. He moved to the computer on the desk, tapping a few keys. The screen illuminated his face with a cold blue glow. But I'm not going to call security, not yet. First, I want to show you something. He turned the screen toward them. Security camera footage. Black and white, but clear enough. Liz watched herself walking across campus 3 days ago, leaving the library. The timestamp read 11:47 p.m. Nothing unusual about that. She often studied late. But then the angle changed. Different camera, same night, her walking to her dorm, and behind her, barely visible at the edge of the frame, a figure in a dark coat. Following at a distance, another angle, another night. 2 weeks ago, the same figure closer this time, watching her through the window of the coffee shop where she worked on articles. Crane clicked through several more clips. Always the same figure, always watching Liz. The most recent footage was from yesterday. Someone's been following you, Miss Hartwell, Crane said softly. For quite some time. Aren't you curious who it is? Liz felt Seb tense beside her. Her own heart was hammering so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. Who? Her voice came out steadier than she felt. I don't know, Crane said, and for the first time he looked genuinely troubled. That's what concerns me. You see, I'm in charge of campus security oversight. When I noticed this pattern in our surveillance review, I began investigating. Whoever this person is, they're careful. They stay just out of clear camera range. They've disabled cameras in certain areas. This is not an amateur. He closed the laptop and looked at both of them. So here's what's going to happen. I'm not going to report this incident. In fact, I'm going to forget I saw you here tonight. But in return, both of you will stop whatever investigation you think you're conducting. Drop it, walk away, because you've clearly attracted the attention of someone dangerous, and I can't protect you if you insist on digging into matters you don't understand. That's not an answer, Seb said. That's a threat disguised as concern. Call it what you like, Mr. Blackwood. Crane pulled out his phone, and Liz heard the camera shutter sound. I now have photographic evidence of both of you in this office. Insurance, let's call it. Go back to your dorms, forget about scholarship funds and financial records, and maybe you'll be safe. He walked to the door, paused with his hand on the handle. You've both just made a serious mistake. The question is whether you're smart enough to not make it worse. Then he was gone, leaving them in the lit office soaked and shaking. Liz was the first to move. She grabbed her bag and headed for the door, but Seb caught her arm. Wait, he said, we need to talk about this. There's nothing to talk about. She pulled away from him. He's right. We got caught. It's over. Someone's stalking you, Liz. The use of her first name stopped her. He never called her Liz. It was always Hartwell delivered with that particular tone of disdain they'd perfected over 2 years of mutual loathing. I can take care of myself, she said, but even she could hear the uncertainty in her voice. I know you can, but he ran a hand through his wet hair looking frustrated. Something's not right here. Crane knows more than he's saying. And those financial records I found, they go back decades. This isn't just current embezzlement, it's systemic. Despite herself, Liz was curious. How far back? At least to 1990. There's a fund that was created that year, the Ashford Special Wellness Fund. It paid out $500,000 in 6 months, then closed. No explanation. 1995. Something about that date tugged at Liz's memory, but she couldn't place it. Why do you care about this? She asked. Really, you could just graduate with your perfect GPA and your father's connections and your guaranteed future. Why risk any of that? Seb was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was low. Because 4 years ago, I did something terrible. Something my father made disappear with money and lawyers and NDAs. And I've spent every day since trying to be better than that person, trying to prove I'm not just another rich kid who thinks consequences don't apply to him. He looked at her, his eyes dark. But this, he gestured at the office. This place does the same thing on a massive scale. Makes problems disappear, buries the truth, and I'm tired of being complicit. Liz studied his face in the harsh overhead light. She'd never heard him sound like this. Vulnerable, honest. It was disconcerting. What did you do? She asked. That's not important right now. What's important is that someone's following you and someone's stealing from students who can't afford to lose anything, and a professor just threatened us with evidence of a crime he allowed to happen. Does any of that sit right with you? No, Liz admitted, but I'm not stupid enough to paint a target on my back either. Too late, Seb said grimly. That target's already there. The question is whether you want to figure out who put it there or wait for them to make their move. They left the building separately. Liz first, they Seb 5 minutes later. The rain had lessened to a drizzle, but the cold had intensified. Liz pulled her hood up and started the long walk back to her dorm on the east side of campus, her mind churning. Someone was following her. For weeks, maybe longer. And Crane had known about it, had been watching the security footage, had waited until tonight to tell them. Why the campus was deserted at this hour. Just the hiss of rain on leaves, the distant sound of a car on the main road, the soft glow of street lamps creating pools of yellow light along the pathway. Liz kept her head down, hands in her pockets, trying to look like just another student walking home after a late night at the library. But every shadow felt like a threat now. Every rustle of leaves made her jump. She thought about her mother. Catherine Hartwell had died 5 years ago when Liz was 16. A single-car accident on a winding road in Maine, the police report said. Her mother had been drinking. Lost control. No other vehicles involved. Liz had never believed it. Her mother didn't drink. Not after watching her own father destroy himself with alcohol. Catherine had been adamant about that, had made Liz promise to never touch the stuff. But the police had found an empty vodka bottle in the car. The toxicology report showed a blood alcohol level of 0.15. Case closed. Except Liz had known in her bones that something was wrong. The funeral had been small, just Liz and a few of her mother's co-workers from the retail store where she'd worked for 20 years. No family, no old friends. It was like her mother had appeared fully formed at age 25 and lived a quiet, unremarkable life until it ended violently on that road. Liz had never understood why. Her mother never talked about her past, about Liz's father, about anything before Liz was born. The past is past, she'd always said. What matters is now. But what if the past hadn't stayed past? What if it had come back for her? Liz's phone buzzed, pulling her from her thoughts. Unknown number. She almost didn't open it, but something made her thumb swipe across the screen. A photo, old, slightly faded, like it had been scanned from a print. A group of students standing in front of Ashford's main gate, the iron lettering visible behind them. 5 people, all looking young and hopeful in that way college freshmen do. The date stamped in the corner read October 1994. Liz zoomed in on the faces. The first one made her stop walking. A young woman with dark hair and bright eyes wearing a vintage Ashford sweatshirt. The resemblance was striking enough that Liz felt her breath catch. It looked exactly like her mother. But that was impossible. Her mother, Catherine Hartwell, had never gone to college. She'd worked retail her whole life, raised Liz alone, after her father left when she was a baby. She'd never mentioned Ashford, never mentioned any university. Liz zoomed in on the other faces. Next to her mother, if it was her mother, stood a young man in a suit jacket despite the casual setting. Even at 19 or 20, he had that air of authority of someone who expected to be listened to. She recognized him from news articles, from the photos she'd seen during her research on Seb's family. Richard Blackwood, Sebastian's father, standing next to her mother, smiling. The photo disappeared from her screen, replaced by a text message. "Check your door." Liz started running. The envelope was thin, plain white with her name written in precise block letters. No return address. It was sitting on her dorm room floor, slipped under the door while she'd been gone. Her hands were shaking as she picked it up. Inside, she found three things. First, the photo she'd seen on her phone, but this was the original print, slightly yellowed at the edges. On the back, someone had written in faded ink, "Ashford 95, the last year." Second, a newspaper clipping. The Portland Press-Herald, August 2019. Local woman dies in single-car accident. Liz had read this article 100 times. Her mother's obituary. The police report said Catherine had been drinking. Lost control on a winding road. No other vehicles involved, but someone had highlighted certain words in yellow marker. Suspicious circumstances initially investigated. Toxicology results inconclusive. Case closed due to lack of evidence. Third, a death certificate. Official detailed. Catherine Marie Hartwell. Date of death, August 15, 2019. But the cause of death listed wasn't motor vehicle accident. It read acute poisoning, undetermined substance. Manner of death undetermined. Liz's hands were shaking so badly she almost dropped the paper. This wasn't the death certificate she'd been given. This was something else. Something that contradicted the official story. A sticky note was attached to the bottom, the handwriting different from the envelope, rushed urgent. "They've been lying to you. She didn't drink and drive. She was murdered. And Ashford knows why. You have 72 hours before others know you know. Use them wisely." Liz sank onto her bed, her wet clothes soaking into the comforter. Her mind was spinning too fast to grasp anything solid. Her mother had been at Ashford. Her mother had known Sebastian's father. Her mother's death wasn't an accident. Her mother had been murdered. And someone wanted Liz to find out why. She read the note again. 72 hours, 3 days. Before others know, you know. Who were others, and what would happen when they found out? Liz looked at the photo again, studying every detail. Besides her mother and Richard Blackwood, there were 3 other people in the frame. A young woman with red hair laughing at something off camera. A tall young man with glasses looking serious. And partially obscured in the background, someone else just the edge of a shoulder, a glimpse of profile. She couldn't make out the face, but something about the posture was familiar. Her phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. "Your enemy's father knew your mother. Your mother is dead. Do you really think that's a coincidence? Work together or stay blind?" Clock's ticking. Liz stared at the message. Your enemy. They meant Seb. As if summoned by the thought, her phone buzzed with a different notification. A text from Seb's number. She'd saved it after their brief exchange following the office incident, though she'd told herself it was just for practical purposes. "Did you get something too? An envelope?" Liz's fingers hovered over the keyboard. Every instinct told her not to trust him. His father was clearly involved in whatever happened to her mother. For all she knew, Seb was part of it too. But he'd been in that office tonight looking for the same thing she was. He'd talked about being tired of the system, of wanting to make things right. And whoever sent these envelopes wanted them to work together. She typed back, "Yes, we need to talk." The response came immediately. "Library, back study room, 8 a.m. or 8 a.m. tomorrow." Liz looked at the clock. It was almost 2 in the morning. 8 a.m. was in 6 hours. She should try to sleep. But she knew she wouldn't. Instead, she spread the contents of the envelope on her desk and began to examine every detail. The photo, the clipping, the death certificate. looking for clues, for patterns, for anything that would tell her who was sending these messages and why. Her mother's face stared up at her from the photo, young and happy and alive. Before whatever happened at Ashford, before the secrets and the silence, before the lonely death on a dark road. "I'm going to find out what they did to you," Liz whispered to the photo. "I promise." Outside, the rain had stopped. The campus was silent. And somewhere in that silence, someone was watching, waiting to see what Liz would do next. The 72-hour clock had started ticking. Liz didn't sleep that night. She spent the hours until dawn researching, cross-referencing, trying to find any mention of her mother at Ashford University. Student records, yearbook, archives, newspaper mentions nothing. It was as if Catherine Hartwell had never existed on this campus. Someone had erased her completely. At 7:30, she gave up on finding anything online and headed to the library. The morning was cold and gray, the kind of October day that promised winter wasn't far behind. Students hurried past with coffee cups and backpacks heading to early classes, none of them aware that Liz's entire world had shifted overnight. The library was nearly empty at this hour. Most students were either still sleeping or grabbing breakfast before 9 o'clock classes. The back study room was tucked away on the third floor behind the rare books section. Liz had used it before for sensitive interviews, times when she needed privacy for chronicle work. The door was unlocked. She pushed it open to find Seb already there, looking like he'd slept about as well as she had. Dark circles under his eyes, hair less perfectly styled than usual, wearing jeans and a wrinkled button-down instead of his typical polished appearance. He stood when she entered, then seemed to think better of it and sat back down. "Thanks for coming," he said. Liz closed the door and took the seat across from him. On the table between them sat two envelopes identical in size and shape to the one she'd received. "You got one too," she said. It wasn't a question. "Yeah." He pushed his envelope toward her. "I think we need to share what we know." It went against every instinct, but Liz pushed her envelope toward him too. They read in silence, the only sound the faint hum of the building's heating system and the occasional footstep in the hall outside. Seb's envelope contained the same photo, the same newspaper clipping. But instead of a death certificate, he had something else. Medical records. Catherine Marie Hartwell, Ashford University Health Services, April 1995. Liz's hands trembled as she read, "Patient exhibits severe psychological distress following participation in unauthorized pharmaceutical trial. Symptoms include anxiety, paranoia, dissociative episodes, sleep disturbances. Immediate withdrawal from study recommended. Patient expressed fear for her safety and requested assistance in leaving campus. Follow-up: patient withdrew from university May 1st, 1995. Current status unknown." Below that, a financial record. A payment of $250,000 from the Blackwood Family Foundation to Catherine M. Hartwell, dated May 15, 1995. In the memo line, "Settlement confidential." And at the bottom, the same sticky note Liz had received, but with different words. "They've been lying to you. Your father paid her to stay silent about something that destroyed her life. And 24 years later, they killed her when she tried to talk. You have 72 hours before others know you know. Use them wisely." When Liz finished reading, she looked up to find Seb watching her, his expression a mixture of guilt and anger. "Your father paid my mother $250,000 to stay quiet," she said, her voice shaking despite her efforts to control it. "She was a student here. A poor student, probably on scholarship like me. And her voice broke, they experimented on her, used her like a lab rat. And when it went wrong, when it damaged her, they just paid her off and erased her." "I didn't know." Seb's voice was rough. "I swear to you, I had no idea. My father never mentioned this. Never mentioned her. Never mentioned any of it. But you believe it." It wasn't a question. "Yes." He met her eyes. "Because it fits. Because I've seen my father make problems disappear before. Because I know what power and money can do when someone decides the rules don't apply to them." He pushed her death certificate across the table toward her, the one that listed poisoning instead of accident. "And because whoever sent us this information is right. They murdered your mother." The word hung in the air between them. Murdered. Oh. Liz felt tears prick at her eyes, but she blinked them back. She'd cried enough last night. Right now, she needed to be sharp, focused, angry. "Why now?" she asked. "It's been 5 years since she died. Why send this to us now?" I don't know, but whoever it is, they know things that should be buried. They have access to medical records, financial documents, security footage. That's not amateur hour. That's someone on the inside. Or someone who used to be on the inside, Liz said slowly. What if it's someone who was there in 1990, someone who participated in the cover-up and now wants to make it right? Or someone who wants revenge, Seb countered. Or someone who's using us to get to my father. They sat in silence for a moment, the implications settling around them. The text said we have 72 hours, Liz finally said. Before others know, we know. What does that mean? I think it means that whoever's following you, whoever's watching us, they're going to make a move. And we need to be ready. Or we could go to the police. Even as she said it, Liz knew it was futile. With what anonymous envelopes and 30-year-old medical records? My father's a federal judge, Liz. Crane is associate dean. Who's going to believe us over them? He was right, and she hated that he was right. So what do you suggest? She asked. Seb leaned forward, his expression intense. We investigate. Together. We have 72 hours to figure out what really happened to your mother. What's still happening at Ashford, and why someone wants us to expose it. We find real evidence, undeniable proof, and then we burn this whole corrupt system to the ground. Liz studied him, looking for the trap, the angle, the manipulation. But all she saw was determination and something that looked like genuine remorse. Why, Brian? She asked. Why do you care so much about this, about my mother, about any of it? Seb was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. 4 years ago, I was driving drunk. Spring break, senior year of high school. I was showing off being stupid. I hit another car. He looked down at his hands. The driver was a freshman here, scholarship student, Marcus Chen. He was in the hospital for 3 months. Fractured spine, traumatic brain injury. He had to drop out, lost his scholarship, lost his future. His voice was hollow now, reciting facts like a confession he'd memorized. My father made it go away, paid the family $200,000, made them sign NDAs, got the police report altered. I didn't go to jail, didn't even get a ticket. Marcus was going to be a doctor. Now he can barely walk. Liz felt something shift in her chest. Not forgiveness, she couldn't offer that for something that hadn't been done to her. But understanding, maybe. The beginning of it. Is that why you're so perfect, she asked quietly. Student government dean's list volunteer work. You're trying to make up for it. I'm trying to be someone who deserves a second chance, Seb said. But I can't make up for what I did to Marcus. I can never make that right. The best I can do is make sure other people don't get away with the same things. Make sure the system that protected me doesn't protect anyone else. He looked up at her, and his eyes were haunted. Your mother was a victim of that system. She was poor, vulnerable, and they used her and discarded her. And when she tried to speak up, 24 years later, they killed her. His jaw tightened. If we don't do something, they'll keep doing it. They'll find more victims, more people like Marcus, more people like Catherine. Liz felt the weight of his words settle over her. She thought about her mother, about the quiet, careful life she'd lived, about how she'd never talked about the past, never let anyone get too close, about the way she'd sometimes wake up screaming in the middle of the night, and Liz would find her sitting in the kitchen, staring at nothing. She was never the same, was she? Liz said softly. Whatever they did to her in that trial, it broke something inside her, and she spent the rest of her life trying to hold the pieces together. Seb didn't say anything. There was nothing to say. Okay, Liz finally said. We work together, but we have rules. I'm listening. 1, we share everything we find. No secrets, no holding back information. Agreed. 2, when this is over, when we've exposed whatever needs to be exposed, we go back to our separate lives. No forced friendship, no expectation of gratitude. Fair enough. 3, if at any point I think you are protecting your father or trying to manipulate me, I walk away and publish everything I know. Consequences be damned. Seb nodded. And if at any point you think I'm a liability or putting you in danger, you walk away. I won't stop you. They stared at each other across the table. Two people who'd spent 2 years perfecting their mutual dislike, now bound together by secrets and murder and the ghosts of Ashford's past. So where do we start? Liz asked. Seb pulled out his laptop. I've been thinking about that. The medical records mention an unauthorized pharmaceutical trial. That means there should be documentation somewhere, research protocols, consent forms, funding sources. Universities keep everything, especially when it involves liability. But if they covered it up, they'd have destroyed the evidence, Liz pointed out. Maybe, but there's one place they might have missed. Seb turned his laptop toward her, showing an old campus map. In 1990, Ashford had a building called Old Chapel. It was originally a church, then got converted to administrative offices in the 80s. According to this map, it had a basement that was used for record storage. Where is it now? That's the interesting part. It's still standing, but it's been closed since 1995. The official story is that it needs structural repairs, but they've never actually repaired it. Just locked it up and left it. Liz felt a chill run down her spine. What if the records are still there? What if they just sealed the building with all the evidence inside? That's what I'm hoping, where Seb closed the laptop. But there's a problem. Security cameras cover most of the approaches to Old Chapel. We'd be seen. Not if we go at the right time, Liz said, her mind already working through the logistics. Wednesday night, there's always a campus-wide power maintenance from 2 to 4 a.m. The dorms have generators, but non-essential buildings lose power. That includes security cameras. That's in 2 days, Seb said, cutting it close with our 72-hour deadline, which means we use the next 2 days to gather more information. Talk to people who might remember 1995. Build a case even if we don't find physical evidence in Old Chapel. Liz pulled out her own laptop. I have a friend who might be able to help. Maya Chen's art studio was in the basement of the Fine Arts Building, a maze of concrete walls and exposed pipes that somehow felt more like a sanctuary than a dungeon. When Liz knocked on the studio door that evening, Maya opened it with paint-stained hands and a welcoming smile that faded when she saw Liz's expression. "What's wrong?" Maya asked immediately. She was small, barely 5 feet tall, with long black hair pulled back in a messy bun. Her studio was organized chaos canvases everywhere, some finished, some in progress, all showing her signature style of hyper-realistic portraiture. "I need your help," Liz said, "and I need you to not ask too many questions." Maya wiped her hands on her paint-stained jeans and gestured Lizos inside. "That bad, huh?" They'd been friends since freshman year, thrown together as roommates and bonding over their shared status as scholarship students in a sea of legacy admissions. Maya was one of the few people Liz trusted completely. "I'm working on something for the Chronicle," Liz said, which was true, but not complete. "I need to know about students from 1995, specifically students who left suddenly or had issues with the administration." Maya raised an eyebrow. "That's pretty specific, and also 30 years ago. Why?" "I can't tell you yet, but it's important. Life or death important." "You're scaring me, Liz." "Good, you should be scared. I'm scared." Liz pulled out her laptop and showed Maya the photo from the envelope. "Do you recognize this location?" Maya studied the image. "That's the main gate, obviously. But this photo is old. See how the trees are smaller, and that building in the background? She zoomed in. That's Old Chapel before they closed it." "You know about Old Chapel." "I've been working on a project." Maya moved to a covered canvas against the wall. She pulled off the sheet to reveal a large painting in progress, a series of portraits arranged in a grid. The forgotten ones of Ashford. People who were here but got erased from the official narrative. Students who dropped out, faculty who got fired quietly, scandals that were buried. Liz stared at the painting. Some of the portraits were complete, others just sketched outlines. But they were all hauntingly beautiful, Maya's technical skill, bringing each face to life with an almost photographic quality. "How did you find these people?" Liz asked. "Archives mostly. Old yearbooks, newspaper mentions that kind of thing. The university keeps everything in the special collections library, but nobody looks at it." Maya pulled out a sketchbook, flipping through pages of notes and reference photos. "Old Chapel kept coming up in my research. It's like this black hole in Ashford's history. One day it's functioning fine, the next it's closed and never spoken of again." She showed Liz a newspaper clipping from the Ashford Chronicle, April 1995. "Student health concerns prompt administrative review." The article was vague, mentioning allegations of improper procedures but providing no details. "I tried to find follow-up articles," Maya said, "but there aren't any. The story just stops, like someone hit the delete button." Because someone did, Liz said quietly. She made a decision. Maya deserved to know the truth, or at least part of it. Not everything. Not about Seb or the envelopes or the 72-hour deadline. But enough. Maya, I need to tell you something. But if I do, you're going to be in danger. And I can't promise I can protect you. Maya set down her sketchbook and looked Liz in the eyes. Is this about your mother? Liz felt her chest tighten. How did you know? Because you've been different since she died. Angrier and more driven. And now you're asking about 1990, which happens to be around the time your mother would have been college age. Maya's voice was gentle. I'm not stupid, Liz. I can connect dots. So Liz told her, not everything but enough. That her mother had been at Ashford. That something had happened to her here. That Liz believed her mother's death wasn't an accident. Maya listened without interrupting. When Liz finished, Maya was quiet for a long moment. Okay, she finally said. What do you need me to do? Archives research, discreet. Look for anything about pharmaceutical trials, student health controversies, sudden policy changes in '95. Names associated with administration back then. Financial records, if you can access. I can do that. Maya pulled out her phone, making notes. But Liz, be careful. If your mother was killed over this, whoever did it won't hesitate to do it again. I know, Liz said. That's why I needed to warn you. If anything feels wrong, if anyone starts asking questions, you back off immediately. Promise me. I promise. But Maya's expression said she was already committed danger or not. As Liz was leaving, Maya called after her. Liz, that photo you showed me, can I see it again? Liz pulled it up on her phone. Maya zoomed in on one of the faces, the young man standing next to Catherine. I've seen this guy before, Maya said slowly. In the archives. He won a bunch of awards senior year. Student government debate team, law school admission. She looked up. His name was Richard Blackwood. He's a federal judge now. Pretty famous around here because his son goes to Ashford. Sebastian Blackwood, Liz said quietly. Yeah. Maya's eyes widened. Wait, your enemy Sebastian Blackwood, the guy you've been feuding with since freshman year. That's the one. And his father knew your mother. Maya looked back at the photo, then at Liz. Oh my God, Liz, this is bigger than I thought. If Sebastian's father is involved, I know, Liz said, which is why you need to be extremely careful. The Blackwoods have money and power and connections. If they think you're a threat, I'll be careful, Maya promised. But you need to be careful too. Are you doing this alone? Liz hesitated. No, I have help. Good. Don't try to be a hero, Liz. Heroes get killed. When Liz left Maya's studio, the sun was setting, painting the campus in shades of orange and gold. She checked her phone and found 2 new messages. The first was from Seb. Found something. Can you meet tomorrow morning? Same place, 9 a.m. The second was from the unknown number, 58 hours remaining. Hope you're making progress. Old Chapel holds answers, but be careful. You're not the only ones looking. Liz felt a chill that had nothing to do with the October wind. Not the only ones looking. What did that mean? She typed back, who else is looking? The response came immediately. The same people who killed your mother. The same people who've been covering this up for 30 years. They know you're digging. They're watching. Trust no one except each other. Liz looked around the darkening campus. Students walking in groups laughing. A couple holding hands by the fountain. Everything looked normal, peaceful, safe. But somewhere in those shadows someone was watching. Waiting. She hurried back to her dorm, checking over her shoulder every few steps. Once inside, she locked the door and wedged a chair under the handle, a trick she'd learned in foster care back when locks couldn't always keep danger out. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was Maya. Found something interesting in the archives. There was a faculty member in 1995 who filed a complaint about ethics violations in student research. The complaint was dismissed and the faculty member left Ashford suddenly. Named Dr. Helen Moreau, former head nurse at Student Health Services. Liz's heart raced. A nurse who'd filed complaints about ethics violations in 1995. Who'd left suddenly. Who might have known exactly what happened to her mother. She typed back. Can you find out where she is now? Maya's response came a minute later. Already on it. Give me until tomorrow. Liz smiled despite everything. Maya was good at this. Too good, which made Liz worry about putting her in danger. But they needed information, and Maya had access to archives that Liz didn't. She spent the rest of the evening researching pharmaceutical trials, looking for any mentions of Ashford in medical journals from the mid-1990s. She found nothing directly, but she did find something interesting. A company called Helix Pharmaceuticals had conducted several controversial trials in the early 90s, all at small universities where oversight was minimal. The trials had all been for cognitive enhancement drugs, medications meant to improve memory focus and mental performance. Several of the trials had been shut down after reports of severe side effects: anxiety, paranoia, dissociative episodes. The same symptoms listed in her mother's medical records. Liz screenshot everything and sent it to Seb with a message. Look familiar. His response was immediate. Jesus, I'll see what I can find about Helix Pharmaceuticals' connection to Ashford. They were making progress. Slowly, carefully, but progress nonetheless. Liz looked at the photo of her mother again, at that young, hopeful face, at the smile that would disappear somewhere between 95 and the day she died on that dark road. I'm getting closer, Mom, she whispered. I'm going to find out what they did to you, and I'm going to make them pay. Outside her window, campus lights flickered on one by one, pushing back the darkness. But Liz knew that some darkness couldn't be pushed back so easily. Some darkness had been growing for 30 years, fed by secrets and money and power. And in 48 hours, she and Seb were going to walk right into the heart of it. The next morning arrived cold and overcast, the kind of day where the sky pressed down heavy and gray. Liz met Seb in the library study room at 9, both of them carrying coffee and the exhausted expressions of people who'd spent another sleepless night chasing ghosts. Maya found something, Liz said without preamble, sliding into her seat. A nurse, Dr. Helen Moreau. She was head of student health services in 1995. She filed a complaint about ethics violations in student research, and then she left suddenly. Seb leaned forward. When you say left suddenly, I mean there's no resignation letter in the archives, no goodbye announcement in the Chronicle, nothing. She was there in March 1995, and by June she was gone. Maya's trying to track down where she is now. Good. Seb opened his laptop. Because I found something too. Helix Pharmaceuticals, the company behind those cognitive enhancement trials you sent me, they had a major contract with Ashford in the 90s. $20 million over 5 years for collaborative research in neuropsychology. He turned the screen toward her. Financial documents grant proposals correspondence between university administrators and Helix executives. The contract was signed in '93 by the university president at the time, and guess who the faculty liaison was? Professor Crane, Liz said. Dr. William Crane, then just an assistant professor in the psychology department. Young, ambitious, and apparently willing to do whatever it took to advance his career. Seb scrolled through more documents. And here's the interesting part. The liaison for legal compliance was a law student intern named Richard Blackwood. Liz felt her stomach twist. Your father. My father, Seb confirmed, his voice flat. He wasn't just peripherally involved. He helped structure the whole thing. Made sure the NDAs were ironclad, set up the payment mechanisms for research participants. He knew exactly what was happening. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of it settling over them. There's something else, Seb said quietly. He pulled up another document. I went through my father's old files last night. He keeps everything in a storage room in our house. He's obsessive about documentation. I found a box labeled Ashford 1990. What was in it? Mostly legal paperwork, NDAs, settlement agreements, liability waivers. But there was also this. He showed her a photograph. Not the one from the envelope, but a different one. Same group of people, but this time they were inside a building, standing in what looked like a laboratory. Clinical white walls, equipment in the background. Catherine Hartwell was there, but she looked different. Thinner. Dark circles under her eyes. Her smile was gone, replaced by something that looked like fear. When was this taken? Oh, Liz asked, her voice tight. April 1990, according to the date stamp. 2 weeks before your mother withdrew from Ashford. Liz stared at the photo, at her mother's haunted expression. Whatever they'd done to her by April, it was already destroying her. Did you find anything else? Anything about what happened after she left? No, but I found a name I didn't recognize. Seb pulled up a scan of a handwritten note, the paper yellowed with age. It was tucked into one of the files, just says H. Moreau knows too much. Handled. Dated May 95. Handled, Liz repeated. Your father wrote that. I don't know, the handwriting isn't his, but it was in his files. Liz felt cold. Dr. Helen Moreau, the nurse who'd filed ethics complaints, who'd disappeared suddenly. Handled. We need to find her, Liz said. If she's still alive, she's the only witness we have. If she's still alive, Seb echoed, and if she's willing to talk after 30 years of silence. Liz's phone buzzed, a text from Maya. Found her, Dr. Helen Moreau, retired, living in Portsmouth. About an hour away, sending address now. How did she find her that fast? Seb asked, reading over Liz's shoulder. Maya's scary good at research. It's like a superpower. Liz's phone buzzed again with the address. We should go talk to her. Today. Agreed, but Liz, Seb hesitated. We need to be careful. If someone handled her 30 years ago, they might be watching to see if anyone comes looking for her now. Which is why we don't tell anyone where we're going, Liz said. Not even Maya. They took Seb's car, an expensive sedan that Liz tried not to resent as a symbol of everything different about their lives. The drive to Portsmouth was tense and quiet, both of them lost in their own thoughts. Liz watched the landscape roll by, autumn trees blazing red and gold, small towns with white church steeples, the kind of New England scenery that should have been peaceful, but instead felt ominous. Somewhere in this landscape her mother had died, on a dark road not unlike these, alone and terrified, her last thoughts unknown. What are you thinking about? Seb asked, breaking the silence. My mother, wondering what her last moments were like. Liz kept her eyes on the window. The police report said she died instantly, impact with a tree, but if she was poisoned first, if she knew she was dying, don't do that to yourself. Why not? Someone needs to think about it. Someone needs to care that she died scared and alone. I care, Seb said quietly, for what it's worth. Liz looked at him surprised. Why, you didn't know her? No, but I know what it's like to live with guilt about something you can't fix. And I know that your mother deserved better than what my father and his friends did to her. There was something in his voice, genuine remorse, maybe even shame. Liz found herself softening slightly, though she fought against it. She couldn't afford to trust him completely, not when his father was so deeply involved. Tell me about Marcus Chen, she said. The guy you hit. What was he like? Seb's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Smart, ambitious. He wanted to be a surgeon, used to volunteer at the free clinic in town even as a freshman. Everyone liked him. And now he lives with his parents, does physical therapy 3 times a week. Can't work, can't drive, can't have the life he planned. Seb's jaw clenched. I destroyed him. And the worst part is, he forgave me. When my father made them sign the NDA, Marcus looked at me and said, I hope this doesn't define you. Like he was worried about me. Have you tried to contact him after? My father forbade it, said it would violate the NDA, but I send money every year, anonymously, to help with medical bills. It's not enough. It'll never be enough. They drove in silence for a while after that. Dr. Helen Moreau's house was a small cottage near the water-weathered shingles and a garden gone wild with fall flowers. The mailbox said H. Moreau in faded letters, and there was a beat-up Volvo in the driveway. She's home, Liz said. They sat in the car for a moment, neither of them moving to get out. What do we say? Seb asked. Hi, we're here to ask about the illegal drug trial you tried to report 30 years ago. We tell her the truth. Liz unbuckled her seatbelt. That my mother was one of the victims. That she was murdered 5 years ago. That we need to know what really happened. The front porch creaked under their feet. Liz knocked and they waited. The woman who opened the door was in her late 60s, with gray hair pulled back in a bun and sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. She looked at them for a long moment, her expression unreadable. I was wondering when someone would come, she said finally. You look just like Catherine. You must be her daughter. What day? Liz felt her breath catch. You remember her? I remember all of them, the ones they used. Dr. Moreau's eyes shifted to Seb. And you must be Richard Blackwood's son. You have his face. Her voice was cold. Does he know you're here? No, ma'am, Seb said. I'm here because I want to know what my father did, what he helped cover up. Dr. Moreau studied them both and stepped back from the door. You'd better come in. The inside of the cottage was cozy but cluttered, filled with books and medical journals and framed photographs of what looked like family. Dr. Moreau led them to a small living room and gestured for them to sit. I'll make tea, she said. This is a long story and you'll need something warm. While she was in the kitchen, Liz looked around. On the mantel were photos of Dr. Moreau when she was younger in nursing scrubs, smiling with other medical staff. One photo showed her at Ashford, the campus visible in the background. Dr. Moreau returned with 3 cups of tea and sat in an armchair across from them. Catherine Hartwell was a beautiful soul, she began without preamble. Brilliant, too. She was studying psychology, wanted to help people with trauma. She came from nothing foster care, just like you, I suspect. She looked at Liz. That's why they chose her. Chose her for what? Liz asked. The trial. Helix Pharmaceuticals was developing a drug called Memorex-7. It was supposed to enhance memory formation and recall, make studying easier, improve test scores. They sold it to students as a way to unlock their full potential. Dr. Moreau's voice was bitter. They targeted scholarship students, poor kids who couldn't afford to say no to the money they offered. $5,000 to take a pill twice a week for 3 months. That was a fortune to someone like Catherine. But something went wrong, Seb said. Everything went wrong. The drug didn't just enhance memory, it fractured it. Patients started having intrusive flashbacks, panic attacks, dissociative episodes. They couldn't tell the difference between memories and hallucinations. Dr. Moreau set down her tea with a shaking hand. Catherine was one of the worst cases. By April, she was having psychotic breaks. She'd wake up screaming, convinced she was somewhere else, someone else. She came to me for help. What did you do? Liz asked. I tried to report it, filed complaints with the university administration, with the IRB, with anyone who would listen. I documented everything: patient symptoms, drug side effects, consent violations. The participants hadn't been properly informed about the risks. Many of them were told it was just a focus enhancement study, nothing dangerous. And they ignored you, Liz said. Worse, they silenced me. Dr. Moreau looked at them both. Professor Crane, he was running the study. He came to my office with Richard Blackwood. Your father, she nodded at Seb. They told me that if I continued making noise, I would lose my medical license. They had lawyers' money power. They said I was a hysteric, that I was exaggerating normal side effects, that I was trying to sabotage important research. She stood and walked to a bookshelf, pulling down a worn cardboard box. But I kept copies of everything. Patient files, consent forms, internal memos, my own documentation of side effects. I knew someday someone would need this. She set the box on the coffee table between them. Inside were folders, notebooks, photographs, decades of evidence carefully preserved. Catherine came to me the day before she left campus. Dr. Moreau said, her voice soft with memory. She was terrified. She said they were watching her, that she'd heard Crane and Blackwood talking about containing the situation. She begged me to help her get away. And you did, Liz said. I drove her to the bus station myself, gave her what money I had, told her to go somewhere they couldn't find her, to change her name if she had to. Dr. Moreau's eyes were wet now. She was pregnant. Did you know that Liz felt the world tilt? About 6 weeks along, she didn't know who the father was. The drug had caused memory problems, and there was a campus party in March that she couldn't remember clearly. She was terrified about what the drug might have done to the baby. To me, Liz whispered. She was pregnant with me. Dr. Moreau nodded. I wanted her to get medical care, but she was too afraid. She thought if she went to a doctor, Ashford would find her. So she just disappeared. I never heard from her again. Until 5 years ago when I saw her obituary. Died in a car accident. She shook her head. I knew it wasn't an accident. I knew they'd found her. Seb had gone very pale. Why kill her 24 years later? Because she remembered, Dr. Moreau said. That's the cruelest irony. The drug that fractured her memories over time, they started coming back. Fragments at first, then more complete. She must have remembered something they couldn't allow to be revealed. She pulled a folder from the box and handed it to Liz. This is Catherine's file. Everything I documented about her case, including something she told me the last time I saw her. She said she remembered being in the lab late one night seeing something she shouldn't have. She couldn't remember what exactly, but she said Crane and Blackwood were arguing and there was someone else there, someone important. Liz opened the folder with trembling hands, medical notes in Dr. Moreau's neat handwriting, consent forms that were deliberately vague, photos of Catherine from the trial period showing her visible deterioration, and at the bottom a note in different handwriting, messy, desperate, Catherine's handwriting. I remember now. I remember what I saw. They killed someone in the lab. An accident, they said, but I don't think it was. I have to tell someone. I have to make this right for my daughter so she knows the truth. The note was dated August 1st, 2019, 2 weeks before her mother died. Liz looked up at Dr. Moreau, tears streaming down her face. She remembered, and they killed her for it. I'm sorry, Dr. Moreau said softly. I'm so sorry I couldn't protect her. I couldn't protect any of them. How many, Seb asked, his voice rough, how many students were in the trial? 15 initially. By the end, only 10 completed it. The other 5 were withdrawn early due to severe reactions. Moreau pulled out a list of names. Catherine was subject 7, but there was another participant who had an even worse reaction. Subject 4, a young man named David Chen. Seb went rigid. Chen, yes, brilliant student, pre-med. He had a complete psychological breakdown in the final week of the trial. Had to be hospitalized. The last I heard, he'd withdrawn from school and she stopped seeing Seb's expression. What is it? Marcus Chen, Seb said slowly. The student I hit with my car. His older brother was named David. He died by suicide in 1996. Marcus always said David had changed after something happened at college, but he never knew what. The pieces were falling into place, horrible and clear. They're connected, Liz said. My mother and Marcus's brother, both victims of the same trial, both destroyed by it. And 30 years later, Marcus was hurt in an accident involving your family, Dr. Moreau said to Seb. That's either a terrible coincidence or it's not a coincidence at all, Seb finished. What if my father knew? What if hitting Marcus was a way to keep the Chen family from digging into what really happened to David? You think your father would arrange for his own son to hit someone? Liz asked. I think my father would do anything to protect his secrets. And I was drunk that night, really drunk more than I'd ever been. What if someone made sure I was drunk? Made sure I got behind the wheel, made sure Marcus Chen was in the right place at the right time. The room went silent, except for the ticking of a clock on the mantel. I need to see the rest of the files, Seb said. Everything you have, names, dates, what happened to the other participants. Dr. Moreau pushed the box toward them. Take it, short of it. I kept it for 30 years waiting for someone who would actually do something with it. I'm too old, too tired to fight them anymore. But you too, she looked between them. You're young enough to be brave and foolish enough to try. We're going to Old Chapel tomorrow night, Liz said. We think there might be more evidence there. Original research files, maybe even video footage. Be careful, de Moreau's voice was urgent. They've protected these secrets for 3 decades. They won't hesitate to protect them now. And Eliza, she reached out and took Liz's hand. Your mother loved you very much. Everything she did, every choice she made was to keep you safe. She stayed silent for 24 years because she was afraid of what they'd do to you if she spoke up. I know, Liz whispered, and I'm going to make sure her silence wasn't for nothing. They drove back to Ashford in the growing darkness, the box of evidence in the back seat like a ticking bomb. Liz sat with Catherine's file in her lap, reading through every page, memorizing every detail of her mother's suffering. We need to tell Maya, she said finally. She's been researching this too. She deserves to know what we found. Agreed, and we should show her the files. Maybe she'll see something we missed. Liz's phone buzzed, a text from the unknown number, 32 hours remaining. You found the nurse. Good, but others are moving too. Old Chapel tomorrow night, 2 a.m. Be ready. They're watching us, Liz said, showing Seb the text. They knew we went to see Dr. Moreau, which means they're tracking us. Phone GPS maybe, or following us physically. Seb's jaw clenched. We need to be smarter, more careful. Or we need to move faster than they can react. Liz looked at the darkening sky. Tomorrow night, Old Chapel, we end this. But even as she said it, she felt a twist of fear in her gut. Because whoever was sending these messages, whoever was watching them, they were always one step ahead. And Liz couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap. They met Maya at her studio that night, spreading Dr. Moreau's files across every available surface. Canvas after canvas got pushed aside to make room for 30 years of buried evidence. Maya sat cross-legged on the floor, reading through patient files with an artist's attention to detail. Every few minutes, she'd stop, make a note in her sketchbook, cross-reference something with her own research. "This is insane," she said, finally looking up at them. 15 students, 15 lives destroyed, and the university just buried it. "With a lot of money and legal threats," Seb said. He was leaning against the wall, arms crossed, looking more tired than Liz had ever seen him. "My father made sure of that." "There's a pattern here," Maya said, flipping through her notes. "Look, Subject 1, Emily Rodriguez, withdrew from school, May 95, moved to California. Subject 2, James Park, hospitalized for psychiatric care, June 1985, dropped out. Subject 3, they all disappeared," Liz finished, "scattered across the country, paid to stay silent and never come back. Except one." Maya held up a file. "Subject 12, Thomas Whitmore. According to this, he refused the settlement, threatened to go public. And then she showed them a newspaper clipping from July 1995. Single car accident. Died instantly. Just like your mother Liz, but 24 years earlier." The room went cold. "They've done this before," Seb said quietly. "Anyone who threatens to talk has an accident." "Which means we're next," Liz said, trying to keep her voice steady. "If they know we're investigating—" "They definitely know," Maya interrupted. She pulled out her phone, showing them a photo she'd taken earlier. "I found this on my studio door when I came back from lunch today." The photo showed Maya in the archives library photographing documents, taken from behind through a window. At the bottom, written in red marker, "Stop looking." "Jesus, Maya." Liz felt sick. "Why didn't you tell us immediately?" "Because I knew you'd tell me to back off, and I'm not backing off." Maya's voice was firm. "My people, Chinese immigrants, we know what it's like when powerful people try to erase us. David Chen was one of us. So was James Park. So were half the students in this trial. They targeted minorities, poor students, people they thought no one would believe or care about." She stood up, facing them both. "So no, I'm not backing off. I'm going with you to Old Chapel tomorrow night." "Absolutely not," Liz said immediately. "It's too dangerous," Seb added, "and it's any safer for you two. At least if there are three of us, we can watch each other's backs." Maya crossed her arms, her small frame radiating determination. "Besides, I've been mapping Old Chapel's layout from architectural archives. You need me." Liz and Seb exchanged a glance. "She's right," Seb said reluctantly. "About the layout, at least. We're going in blind otherwise." "Fine," Liz conceded. "But Maya, if anything goes wrong, if we tell you to run, you run. No arguments." "Deal." Maya pulled out her sketchbook, showing them detailed drawings of Old Chapel's floor plan. "So here's what I found. The building has 3 floors plus a basement. The basement was converted to record storage in 1908. According to the archives, there were plans to digitize everything and clear it out by 96, but that never happened. Because 1995 happened," Liz said. "They sealed the building with all the evidence still inside." "Exactly. And look at this." Maya pointed to a section of the basement on her drawing. "There's a room marked Restricted Access, Research Archives. That's not standard for university record storage. I think that's where they kept the trial documentation." "How do we get in?" Seb asked. "The building's been locked for 30 years. Maya grinned. "I may have already scouted it. There's a window on the south side ground level that's partially broken. Someone tried to board it up, but the wood's rotted through. We can get in that way." "You're terrifyingly competent at this," Liz said. "I have a lot of time alone in my studio. I've been planning heists in my head since I was 10. Maya's grin faded. "But seriously, we need to be careful. If they've been watching us, they'll know we're planning something." "Which is why we're going to make them think we've given up," Seb said slowly. "Tomorrow during the day, we act normal. Go to classes, be visible, don't do anything suspicious. Let them think the warning scared us off. And then at 2 a.m. when the power maintenance cuts the cameras, we move." Liz finished. They spent the next hour going over the plan in detail. Entry point, route through the building, what to look for, contingencies if they got separated. Maya sketched it all out, her artist's hands turning their words into visual strategy. At midnight, Seb stood to leave. I should go. If my father notices I'm gone too much, he'll start asking questions. Does he know about any of this? Maya asked. No, and I want to keep it that way until we have undeniable proof. Seb looked at Liz. Can I talk to you outside for a minute? They stepped into the hallway, leaving Maya to pack up the files. The corridor was empty, lit by flickering fluorescent lights that gave everything a sickly yellow cast. What is it? Liz asked. Seb was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. Tomorrow night, if we find what I think we're going to find, my father's going to prison. His career, his reputation, everything, it'll all be destroyed. I know, Liz said softly, and I need you to know that I'm okay with that. More than okay. He deserves it. Seb looked at her directly. But I also need you to know that whatever we find, I'm seeing this through. I'm not going to protect him. I'm not going to try to minimize it or spin it. The truth comes out no matter what it costs me. Liz studied his face, looking for any sign of deception or hesitation. But all she saw was resolution. Why are you telling me this? She asked. Because you still don't fully trust me. I can see it, and I don't blame you. If I were you, I wouldn't trust me either. But tomorrow night we're going into something dangerous, and we need to trust each other completely. So I'm telling you now, I'm all in. Whatever we find, wherever it leads, I'm with you. Something in Liz's chest loosened. Not trust, not yet, but the possibility of it. Okay, she said. I believe you. Seb nodded, looking relieved. Get some sleep tonight. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. You too. He started to walk away, then turned back. Liz, your mother would be proud of you, what you're doing, the person you are. Before Liz could respond, he was gone, his footsteps echoing down the stairwell. The next day crawled by with agonizing slowness. Liz went to her classes, took notes, participated in discussions, all while her mind was elsewhere. Every time someone looked at her, she wondered if they were watching. Every time her phone buzzed, she half expected another threatening message. But nothing happened. The campus was normal, peaceful, oblivious. At lunch, she sat in the dining hall with Maya, both of them pretending to study while actually reviewing the plan one more time. You seem calm, Maya observed. I'm terrified, Liz admitted, but I'm also, I don't know, ready. My whole life I've been looking for answers about my mother, who she really was, why she was the way she was. And tonight I'm finally going to get them. Even if they're worse than you imagined. Especially then, because at least I'll know the truth. Maya squeezed her hand. She loved you, Liz. Whatever happened to her, whatever she went through, she did it all to protect you. Dr. Moreau said so. I know. Liz blinked back tears, which is why I have to do this, for her. That afternoon, Liz saw Seb across the quad. He was with his father. Judge Blackwood had apparently come to campus for some event. They stood by the fountain talking, and from a distance, they looked like the perfect father and son. Successful, respectable, powerful. But Liz knew the truth. Behind that polished exterior was corruption and cover-ups and at least 2 murders. As if sensing her gaze, Seb looked over. Their eyes met across the quad. He gave the tiniest nod a signal. Everything was still on for tonight. Judge Blackwood followed his son's gaze, his eyes landing on Liz. For a moment, they stared at each other. The man who'd helped destroy her mother and the daughter who was about to expose him. Then the judge smiled, cold calculating, and turned back to his son. Liz shivered despite the afternoon sun. At 1:30 a.m., Liz slipped out of her dorm. The campus was silent, most windows dark. She dressed in all black, pulled her hair into a tight bun, wore gloves. In her backpack, flashlights, her phone, a portable charger, lockpicks she'd ordered online years ago for a story she'd never finished. She met Maya and Seb at the designated spot, a maintenance shed behind the science building, out of sight from most cameras. Maya was dressed similarly, looking nervous but determined. Seb had added a dark beanie, his usual polished appearance, completely gone. Power maintenance starts in 15 minutes, Seb said, checking his phone. We move as soon as it kicks in. Any last-minute changes to the plan? Maya asked. Just one, Liz said. If we get separated, we don't try to find each other inside. We get out and regroup at Maya's studio. Understood. They both nodded. At 1:58 a.m., the campus lights flickered. Then one by one, buildings went dark. Emergency lighting kicked in at the dorms and essential buildings, but everywhere else, including Old Chapel, went black. Now, Seb said. They moved quickly through the darkness, keeping to shadows, avoiding the few areas that still had generator power. Old Chapel loomed ahead of them, a dark silhouette against the starry sky. It looked abandoned, forgotten, exactly like a building that had been closed for 30 years. But as they got closer, Liz noticed something odd. "The grass is trampled," she whispered, pointing to the area around the building. "Someone's been here recently. Multiple people, by the look of it." "Could be maintenance," Seb suggested, but he sounded doubtful. "Or someone else looking for what we're looking for," Maya said. They found the broken window on the south side, just where Maya had said it would be. The boards had been pried away recently by the look of the fresh wood splinters. "Someone's been inside," Liz said, "within the last few days." "We knew we weren't the only ones looking," Seb reminded her. "The message said as much." "I know, but it's different seeing actual evidence of it." Liz pulled out her flashlight. "Okay, we go in, we stick together, we find the research archives, we get what we need, and we get out. 30 minutes max." 30 minutes, Maya and Seb echoed. Liz climbed through the window first, dropping down into what appeared to be an old office. Dust covered everything: desks, filing cabinets, the ancient computer monitor. The air was stale and cold, smelling of mildew and decay. Maya came through next, then Seb. They clicked on their flashlights, the beams cutting through the darkness. "Basement stairs should be down the main hallway," Maya said, consulting her sketch. They moved through the building like ghosts, their footsteps muffled by years of accumulated dust. The hallway was lined with closed doors, each one marked with faded signs: administration, faculty lounge, records management. At the end of the hall, they found the stairs leading down. The door was closed but unlocked, another sign that someone had been here recently. The basement stairs were narrow and steep, the railing wobbling under Liz's hand. With each step down, the temperature dropped. By the time they reached the bottom, their breath was visible in the flashlight beams. The basement was a maze of shelves and filing cabinets, all packed with boxes and folders. Everything was organized by year: 1985, 1906, 1987. They moved through the decades searching. "Here," Maya called softly. 1990. The section marked 1995 was notably thinner than the others. Liz's heart sank. Had someone already cleared it out? But then Seb pointed to a door at the back of the room. "Restricted access, research archives." He read from the faded sign. This door was locked. Liz pulled out her lockpicks, but Seb stopped her. "Wait, look." He pointed to the lock. "Fresh scratches. Someone picked this recently. Within the last few hours, I'd say." They looked at each other, the same thought occurring to all three of them simultaneously. They weren't alone in the building. "Maybe they already left," Maya whispered hopefully. "Or maybe they're still here," Seb said, "waiting to see who else shows up." Liz made a decision. "We came here for answers. We're not leaving without them." She worked the lock, and within 30 seconds, it clicked open. The research archives room was smaller than she'd expected. More filing cabinets, but also boxes stacked against the walls. And in the center of the room, someone had been here. Recently. Papers were scattered on the floor, drawers, hung open, boxes had been torn apart. Someone was looking for something specific, Maya said, and they were in a hurry. Liz moved to the nearest filing cabinet, pulling open drawers. Most were empty, but in the back of one drawer, she found a folder that had been missed. Memorex 7 trial, video documentation. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside were labels for videotapes dated from January to May 1995, each one marked with a subject number and date. "They recorded the sessions," she said, "the trial sessions. It's all documented." "But where are the tapes?" Seb asked, looking around. "Maybe whoever was here took them," Maya suggested. Or maybe Liz noticed something. A box in the corner, partially hidden behind others, that looked undisturbed. She moved toward it. The box was labeled Equipment 1995. Inside, buried under old medical instruments and monitoring devices, she found them. 6 videotapes, their labels matching the ones in the folder. Subject 7 was written on one of them, Catherine Hartwell. Liz held the tape like it was made of glass. This was her mother, 30 years ago, before everything fell apart. "We need to take these," Seb said. All of them. Their evidence, their sawing. Agreed. Liz carefully packed the tapes into her backpack. Let's keep looking. There has to be more. They searched for another 10 minutes, finding fragments, consent forms, dosage records, payment receipts. All of it evidence. All of it damning. Then Maya called out from the far corner. Guys, you need to see this. She was standing by a box that had been opened, paper spilling out. But these weren't trial documents. These were personnel files. Dr. William Crane, Maya read, in Professor Richard Blackwood, Dr. Helen Moreau. She pulled out another file. And this one, no name on the label, just a date, April 18th, 95. Liz opened it. Inside were photographs, the laboratory, equipment, and people. Catherine was there, but she looked wrong, sedated perhaps, or in shock. Crane was there taking notes. Richard Blackwood was there observing. And there was someone else. Another student male lying on a gurney, not moving. The next photo showed the same scene, but with more people rushing in. Medical equipment. Panic in everyone's faces. The last photo showed a body bag being wheeled out. Clipped to the photos was a death certificate. David Chen, age 19, cause of death, cardiac arrest due to adverse drug reaction. Manner of death, accident. They killed him, Maya whispered. The trial killed Marcus's brother, and they covered it up. This is what my mother remembered. Liz said, her voice hollow. This is what she saw. They killed David Chen, called it an accident, and paid everyone to stay quiet. But she never forgot. And when she remembered clearly enough to talk about it, they killed her too, Seb finished. A sound echoed through the basement. Footsteps. On the stairs. Someone was coming. Hide, Seb hissed. They scattered, ducking behind filing cabinets and shelves. Liz clutched her backpack with the videotapes, her heart hammering so hard she was sure whoever was coming would hear it. The footsteps reached the bottom of the stairs. A flashlight beam swept across the room. I know you're here, Professor Crane's voice called out. The three of you, did you really think I wouldn't notice, that I wouldn't be watching? The beam landed on the open door to the research archives. You've found it all, haven't you? The files, the videos, the evidence. Crane stepped into the archives room and Liz could see him now. He looked older in the harsh flashlight glow. Tired, but also dangerous. It doesn't matter, he continued. You can't leave with any of it. This building is going to have an unfortunate fire tonight. Old structure, faulty wiring, such a tragedy. And 3 students who broke in to explore will be caught in it. Another accident. Ashford seems to have a lot of those. Liz felt cold terror wash over her. This wasn't just about exposing the truth anymore. This was about survival. For a moment, no one moved. Liz crouched behind a filing cabinet, her backpack pressed against her chest, barely breathing. She could see Maya across the room, hidden behind a stack of boxes, her eyes wide with terror. Seb was somewhere to her left, but she couldn't see him. Professor Crane stood in the doorway, his flashlight sweeping methodically across the room. He was dressed differently than she'd ever seen him. Dark clothes work, gloves, a canvas bag slung over his shoulder. This wasn't a professor who'd stumbled upon students breaking in. This was someone who'd planned this. You know, I actually hoped you'd be smarter than this, Crane said conversationally, still scanning the room with his light. I gave you a warning, showed you that you were being followed, gave you every chance to walk away. But here you are, just like your mother Eliza, too stubborn to know when to stop digging. Liz's fists clenched. He was using her mother to bait her, to get her to reveal herself. Catherine was the same way, Crane continued. Sweet girl, brilliant mind. But she couldn't leave well enough alone. She had to remember, had to start asking questions again after all those years. Called me last summer, said she was going to tell her daughter everything. Said Eliza deserved to know the truth about where she came from. He paused and Liz heard him pulling something from his bag. The smell of gasoline filled the air. I tried to reason with her, offered her more money, but she said no amount of money was worth lying to her daughter anymore. So I had to make other arrangements. He began pouring the gasoline, the liquid splattering against boxes and papers. The thing about old memories is they're unreliable. The drugs saw to that. But she remembered enough to be dangerous. Remembered David Chen dying in the lab. Remembered Richard and me arguing about how to dispose of the body. Liz felt bile rise in her throat. He was confessing. freely, because he planned to kill them all. You're insane. Seb's voice came from the darkness, steady despite the situation. You think you can just burn this building down with us in it and no one will ask questions? Oh, they'll ask questions, Crane agreed, but they'll get the answers I give them. 3 students breaking into a condemned building, probably smoking or using candles for light. Old structure catches fire. Tragic accident. The university will pay the families express deep regret and move on, just like we always do. The evidence is already out there, Liz called out, making a snap decision. If they were going to die anyway, she might as well try to shake them. We sent copies to journalists, to the police. Even if you kill us, the truth is getting out. Crane laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. Nice bluff, Eliza, but I've been monitoring your electronic communications. No emails, no uploads. Everything you found is right here in this room about to turn to ash. He was right. They hadn't sent anything out. They'd been so focused on getting the evidence first, they hadn't thought about securing it remotely. Stupid. So stupid. But you're welcome to try one more thing, Crane said, his tone shifting to something darker. Come out now, all 3 of you. Hands visible. And maybe I'll let one of you walk away. Tell me which one deserves to live. Silence. No, not even to save your friends, Eliza. Not even to save Sebastian, who's been helping you. Or Maya, who's done nothing but draw pictures. He poured more gasoline. Fine, have it your way. Liz met Maya's eyes across the room. Maya was shaking, tears streaming down her face, but she shook her head firmly. Don't give up. Don't surrender. Then Liz heard it, the soft scrape of movement. Seb was moving, positioning himself. Actually, Seb's voice rang out. I think you're forgetting something important. He stepped into view, hands raised, but there was something in his stance that wasn't submission. It was rhythm, readiness. Seb, don't, Liz started. You're not the only one who's been planning ahead, Professor, Seb continued, cutting her off. See, unlike my father, I learned from Marcus Chen's accident. I learned that sometimes the only way to protect yourself from powerful people is to make sure you're not the only one who knows the truth. He pulled out his phone, the screen illuminating his face. I've been recording this entire conversation, and it's been uploading in real time to a cloud server that automatically forwards to 5 different email addresses if I don't cancel it within the next... He checked his watch. 3 minutes. Crane's flashlight fixed on Seb. You're lying. Am I... You want to risk it? Seb's voice was steady. 5 journalists, 5 different news organizations, all of them getting your confession to murder. You think you can contain that? For the first time, Crane looked uncertain. Even if you kill us right now, Seb pressed, that recording goes out. Your voice clear as day, admitting to killing Catherine Hartwell, admitting to covering up David Chen's death, admitting to attempted murder of 3 students. How's that for documentation? Crane stood very still. Liz could almost see his mind working, calculating odds, trying to figure out if Seb was bluffing. She decided to add pressure. He's not lying, she called out, stepping into view beside Seb. I've been doing the same thing, different server, different recipients. And Maya's been streaming to her art collective's private channel. There are already people watching this. This was a complete lie, but Crane didn't know that. Maya caught on. 23 viewers and counting, she said, emerging from her hiding spot. Hi, Professor Crane. Smile for the camera. Crane's face twisted with rage. You think you're clever, all of you, just like all the others who thought they could outsmart the system. But the system always wins. Always. Not this time, Seb said, because the system requires silence, requires shadows. You pull this trigger light, that match, and you're not in the shadows anymore. Your front page news, national news, your face on every screen, your name synonymous with murder. Is that really what you want? Crane's hand moved to his pocket. When it emerged, he was holding something that made Liz's blood run cold. A gun. Here is what's going to happen, Crane said, his voice now completely devoid of emotion. You're going to delete those recordings. All of them. You're going to hand over those videotapes and every piece of evidence you found. And then you're going to leave this campus tonight and never come back. If you do this, you get to live. And if we don't, Liz asked, though she already knew the answer. Then I shoot all three of you, burn the building anyway, and claim you attacked me when I discovered your break-in. Self-defense. Tragic but justified. He aimed the gun at Seb. I'm giving you 30 seconds to decide. Starting now. Liz's mind raced. They couldn't give up the evidence. It was the only leverage they had. But if they didn't, Crane would kill them. Unless... Professor Crane, a voice called from the doorway, a voice that made everyone freeze. Judge Richard Blackwood stepped into the room, his own flashlight in hand. He looked between his son Crane and the two women, his expression unreadable. Richard, Crane said, sounding relieved, thank God, help me contain this. But Judge Blackwood wasn't looking at the students. He was looking at Crane. Put the gun down, William. What, Richard? These kids, they have everything. The tapes, the files they know about David Chen. I said, put the gun down. The judge's voice was cold steel. Slowly, Crane lowered the weapon. I don't understand. We've protected this for 30 years together, you and me. We can't let them. We can't shoot 3 students in a university basement, William. Even I can't make that disappear. Judge Blackwood stepped further into the room. What were you thinking, burning down a campus building with bodies inside? That's not containment. That's panic. Then what do you suggest? Crane demanded. They have evidence. They have... I know what they have. I've been watching them just as closely as you have. The judge's eyes landed on Seb. My son playing detective. How disappointed your mother would be. Mom would be proud, Seb said quietly, because she always hated what you really are. Something flickered in the judge's face, but it was gone in an instant. Here's what's going to actually happen, Judge Blackwood said, addressing all of them now. You're going to give me the evidence, all of it, the tapes, the files, the photographs, and in exchange, I'm going to give you something much more valuable. What? Liz asked. The truth. He looked at her directly. The complete truth about your mother, about what happened in 1995, and about something you don't know yet. Something that once you know it will make you want to bury this just as much as we do. Nothing could make me want to bury my mother's murder, Liz said. Not even if you learned that Catherine Hartwell's daughter, you are actually my biological daughter, Judge Blackwood said. But even if you learned that you and Sebastian are half-siblings. The words hit Liz like a physical blow. The room seemed to tilt. No, she whispered. That's not your lying. I wish I was. The judge pulled out his own phone, showing her a document, a DNA test. Recent. I had it done last month when I realized who you were and what you were investigating. Catherine never told me she was pregnant when she left. Never gave me the chance to, he stopped himself. But the timing is undeniable. You were born in December 1995, conceived in March 1995 during the trial. Liz looked at Seb, who had gone white as paper. Seb couldn't finish the sentence. Half-siblings, the judge confirmed. Same father, different mothers, which makes this entire situation significantly more complicated, doesn't it? Maya had moved to stand beside Liz, her hand finding Liz's and squeezing. This doesn't change anything, she said firmly. He still helped murder David Chen. He still covered it up. He still let Catherine die. I didn't kill Catherine, Judge Blackwood said. That was all William. I didn't even know he was planning it until after it was done. By then, it was too late to fix. You could have turned him in, Seb said, his voice shaking with rage. You could have told the truth, but you chose to protect yourself instead. I chose to protect you, Banshee, the judge shot back. If the truth about 1995 came out, my career was over. Our family name destroyed, your future ruined. I did what I had to do. You keep telling yourself that, Seb said. But we both know the truth. You protected yourself, just like you always do. Judge Blackwood's jaw tightened. Think what you want. But right now, you have a choice to make. Walk away with your lives and your family intact because, yes, Eliza, you're part of this family now, whether you like it or not. Or destroy everything, expose the truth and watch the fallout tear apart not just me, but your brother, your future, your name. She's not my sister, Seb said, but his voice lacked conviction. Liz could see the truth settling over him the same way it was settling over her. All the attraction they'd felt over the past few days. The connection. The kiss in the library that neither of them had acknowledged. It was all wrong, all tainted. Actually, a voice called from the stairwell, "She's not." Everyone turned. Dr. Helen Moreau descended the stairs slowly, carefully, using the railing for support. Behind her were two police officers, and Liz's heart leaped. Maya's older sister, Jennifer Chen, who worked for the district attorney's office. "Dr. Moreau," Crane breathed. "You're supposed to be dead, hidden, silenced." Dr. Moreau smiled grimly. "I've been many things over the years, William. But I've never been stupid. I knew eventually someone would come looking, so I've been preparing." She nodded to the officers who moved to flank Crane and Judge Blackwood. "Richard Blackwood and William Crane, you're under arrest," one officer began. "On what charges?" Judge Blackwood demanded. "These students broke into, on charges that I filed this evening after Eliza and Sebastian came to see me," Dr. Moreau interrupted. "I've spent 30 years documenting everything. Every crime, every cover-up, every victim. I've been waiting for the right time, the right people to bring it to light. And these three," she gestured to Liz, Eb, and Maya, "they gave me that opportunity." Jennifer Chen stepped forward. "We've been building this case all day. Medical records, financial documents, testimony from other trial participants we've located. And now we have Professor Crane's confession recorded by Sebastian Blackwood and transmitted to my office 20 minutes ago." Seb looked stunned, but I was bluffing. "You were smart," Jennifer corrected. "Your phone's voice recorder has been on since you entered this building, uploading to a cloud service that I've been monitoring. When we heard Crane's confession, we moved in." She looked at Maya. "Your sister's been helping us, making sure you had backup, even if you didn't know it." "You knew," Maya asked. "You knew what I was doing." "I've known about David for years," Jennifer said softly. "My brother. I've been investigating his death unofficially for a decade. When Maya started asking questions about Ashford 1995, I knew she was getting close. So I reached out to Dr. Moreau, who reached out to me. We've been coordinating." Liz felt like the ground was shifting beneath her feet. Nothing was what she thought it was. "But the DNA test," she said, looking at Judge Blackwood. "Am I really?" "No," Dr. Moreau said firmly. "You're not his daughter. That test is a forgery. I know because I was there when Catherine got pregnant, and I know exactly who the father was." She pulled out an old envelope from her bag, handing it to Liz. "Catherine made me promise to give this to you if you ever came looking for the truth. She wrote it a month before she died, when her memories fully returned. Read it. You deserve to know." Liz's hands shook as she opened the envelope. Inside was a letter in her mother's handwriting. "My dearest Eliza, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone and you've discovered the truth about Ashford. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you myself. I'm sorry for all the secrets. The man who claims to be your father, Richard Blackwood, is lying. We were never together, but he wants you to believe you're his daughter because it gives him leverage, a way to control the narrative. The truth is your father was a good man, a fellow student in the trial who died trying to protect me. David Chen was his name. He was brilliant, kind, and brave. When he realized what the drug was doing to us, he tried to stop the trial. They killed him for it, made it look like an accident. But I was there. I saw everything. After David died, I found out I was pregnant. With you. You're his daughter, not Blackwood's. I ran before they could take you from me. I stayed hidden, stayed quiet because I was terrified of what they'd do to you if they knew you existed. But my silence cost David justice. It cost all the other victims justice. And I can't live with that anymore. So I'm coming forward. I'm going to tell the truth. If something happens to me, and I know it might, please know that I died trying to do the right thing, trying to make sure you could grow up in a world where the truth matters. You are David Chen's daughter. You are loved. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. With all my heart, Mom." Liz looked up, tears streaming down her face. She looked at Maya, then at Jennifer Chen. "David was my father," she whispered. "Your brother was my father." Jennifer nodded, her own eyes wet. "Which makes us family, and family protects each other." The basement of Old Chapel became a chaos of voices and movement. Police officers reading rights, Crane shouting about lawyers, Judge Blackwood standing silent and stone-faced as Ani's handcuffs clicked around his wrists. But Liz heard none of it. She stood frozen. Catherine's letter clutched in her hands, staring at Jennifer Chen, her aunt, her family. "David was my father," she said again, testing the words, feeling their weight. Marcus is my uncle. Marcus is your uncle, Jennifer confirmed softly. She stepped forward, and Liz could see the resemblance now, the shape of her eyes, the curve of her jaw. Family features she'd thought she'd inherited from Catherine, but were actually from the Chen side. He's going to want to meet you, if you're ready. Liz's voice broke. I don't know. This is all too much. Maya finished putting an arm around Liz's shoulders. It's too much all at once. She needs time. Seb had moved to stand apart from everyone, his back against the wall, looking shell-shocked. Liz caught his eye across the room. The relief was palpable. They weren't siblings. That nightmare scenario had been a lie. But the weight of everything else, his father's arrest, the scope of the crimes, the revelation about Liz's true parentage, it was crushing him. Sebastian, Judge Blackwood, called as the officers prepared to lead him away. Sebastian, look at me. Seb kept his eyes on the floor. I did this for you, the judge said, his voice cracking for the first time. Everything I did to protect our family, to give you opportunities to ensure your future. You have to understand that. No, Seb finally looked up and his face was hard. You did it for yourself, to protect your reputation, your career, your legacy. Don't you dare pretend this was about me. Son, I'm not your son anymore. Seb's voice was quiet but final. A father protects people. A father tells the truth. A father doesn't build his success on the bodies of innocent students. You're not my father. You're just a criminal who happens to share my dough. Judge Blackwood's face crumpled. For a moment he looked old and broken. Then the mask slammed back down and he turned away as the officers led him toward the stairs. Crane was still arguing, still threatening, but the officers ignored him. Dr. Moreau watched them both go with an expression of grim satisfaction. 30 years, she said quietly. 30 years I've been waiting for this moment. Jennifer Chen approached her. Dr. Moreau, we're going to need you to come to the station to give a formal statement. Your documentation is extraordinary, but we need it all on record. Of course. Dr. Moreau looked at Liz, Seb, and Maya. And these three, they're the real heroes here. Without their courage, none of this would have happened. We'll need their statements too, Jennifer said. But that can wait until morning. They've been through enough tonight. She looked at her sister. Maya, take them back to your studio. Stay together. I'll have an officer stationed outside, just in case. Just in case what? Maya asked. Just in case Crane and Blackwood have any associates who might try to contain this before we can move forward with the prosecution. This is going to be a massive case. National news. There will be people who want it to go away. Liz felt a new wave of fear. It wasn't over. Not really. They'd won this battle, but the war was just beginning. They left Old Chapel in a daze, following Maya across the dark campus. The power had come back on while they were inside, and the buildings glowed against the night sky. Normal, peaceful, as if the world hadn't just tilted on its axis. Maya's studio felt like a sanctuary. She locked the door, pulled the curtains, and made them all sit down while she put on a kettle for tea. The domestic normalcy of it was jarring. I can't believe Jennifer knew, Maya said, still processing. My own sister investigating David's death this whole time, and she never told me. She was protecting you, Liz said, the same way my mother tried to protect me. Secrets upon secrets upon secrets. She looked at the letter again, her mother's handwriting blurring through tears. She died trying to do the right thing. She stayed silent for 24 years to keep me safe, and then she decided the truth was more important, and it killed her. But it didn't kill the truth, Seb said quietly. He was sitting on the floor, his back against the wall, looking exhausted. That's what Crane and my father never understood. You can't kill truth. You can only delay it. Your father, Liz said carefully. How are you, Waswamadin? I don't know, Seb rubbed his face. I should feel something. Sadness, guilt, I don't know, but all I feel is relief. Is that terrible? No, Maya said firmly. It's honest. He spent your whole life manipulating you, controlling you, using you to build his own image. You don't owe him grief. But he's still my father, half my DNA. What if I'm like him? You're not, Liz said. She moved to sit beside him on the floor. You're nothing like him. He spent decades covering up his crimes. You spent days exposing them, even knowing it would destroy your own life in the process. That's who you are. Seb looked at her and something passed between them. Relief, gratitude, and something else, something that had been there before the terrible moment when they'd thought they were siblings. "We're not related," he said softly. "We're not related," Liz confirmed. "That's good. That's very good." They sat in silence for a moment, hands nearly touching on the floor between them. Maya cleared her throat. "Okay, I'm going to be the responsible one and say that maybe tonight is not the night for whatever this is." She gestured between them. "You've both been through massive trauma. You just found out you're a Chen Liz. Seb's father is going to prison. There are going to be trials and media, and everything is going to be insane for a while. So maybe table the romance until your lives aren't actively falling apart." Liz laughed, surprising herself. "When did you become the wise one?" "I've always been the wise one. You just never listened." Maya handed them each a cup of tea. "Now drink, and then you're both sleeping here tonight. I have spare blankets and a very protective older sister with police connections. We're not taking any chances." Liz woke to sunlight streaming through Maya's studio windows and the sound of voices in the hall. For a moment, she forgot where she was, forgot everything that had happened. Then it all came rushing back. Her mother, David Chen, the trial, the murders, the arrests. She sat up finding Maya and Seb already awake watching something on Maya's laptop. "What is it?" Liz asked, moving to join them. "News," Maya said grimly. "We're famous." The screen showed a news anchor with a breaking news banner, "Federal judge and university official arrested in decades-old cover-up." The arrests of federal judge Richard Blackwood and Ashford University associate Dean William Crane have sent shockwaves through both the legal and academic communities, the anchor was saying. According to sources, the two men are accused of covering up illegal pharmaceutical trials conducted on students in the 1990s, trials that allegedly resulted in at least 2 deaths and numerous cases of lasting psychological damage. The screen switched to footage of Crane and Judge Blackwood being led out of police headquarters in handcuffs. Then it cut to Dr. Moreau looking dignified and determined. "I stayed silent for 30 years because they threatened my career. My license, my life," Dr. Moreau was saying. "But I kept records of everything, every patient, every symptom, every attempt to cover up the harm they were doing. And when Eliza Hartwell and Sebastian Blackwood came to me, seeking the truth about what happened to Eliza's mother, I knew it was finally time to speak up. And now we're going to be mobbed by reporters," Seb said. "My phone's already got 57 missed calls." "Mine too," Liz said, checking her own phone. "Texts from professors, classmates, even the editor of the Chronicle. Everyone wanted the story. Everyone wanted to know what she knew." There was a knock on the door. Maya checked the peephole before opening it to reveal Jennifer Chen, along with a man in his 30s using forearm crutches. He had kind eyes and a gentle smile despite the obvious physical challenges he faced. "Marcus," Maya breathed, "you came." "Jennifer called me last night, told me everything." Marcus Chen looked at Liz and his eyes filled with tears. "My brother's daughter, David's little girl. I can't believe, after all this time." He couldn't finish. Liz stood frozen, not knowing what to do or say. This man was her uncle, her family. David Chen's brother, injured in what might not have been an accident at all. "I'm sorry," she finally said. "I'm sorry about David, about what happened to you, about all of it. You have nothing to be sorry for." Marcus moved carefully into the room, settling into a chair. "You were a victim too, just like your mother, just like all of us. But you found the courage to expose it, to give David justice after all these years." "We all did it," Liz said. "Seb, Maya, Dr. Moreau. It wasn't just me." "But you started it," Jennifer said. "You refused to accept the official story about your mother's death. You asked the questions no one else would ask. That took tremendous courage." "Or tremendous stubbornness," Liz said with a weak smile. "The Chen family specialty," Marcus said, and they all laughed, nervous, relieved laughter that broke some of the tension. "So what happens now?" Seb asked. Jennifer pulled out a folder. "Now comes the hard part. Criminal trials, civil suits, media scrutiny. The university is already in crisis mode. The president resigned this morning. The board of trustees called an emergency meeting, and there are calls for a complete investigation into all research conducted at Ashford over the past 50 years. Good, Maya said fiercely. They should investigate everything. Who knows what else they've covered up? We're also going to need you to testify, Jennifer continued. All three of you. What you found, how you found it, what Crane said in Old Chapel. Are you prepared for that? Yes, Liz said immediately. Seb and Maya nodded their agreement. It's going to be brutal, Jennifer warned. Defense attorneys will attack your credibility. They'll dig into your lives, your histories looking for anything to discredit you. Seb, they'll use your relationship with your father against you. Liz, they'll claim you were biased because of your mother. Maya, they'll say you were just helping your friend and had no real involvement. Let them try, Maya said. We have evidence, we have recordings, we have Dr. Moreau's documentation. The truth is on our side. The truth doesn't always win, Jennifer said gently, but it has a better chance when people like you are willing to fight for it. Marcus leaned forward. I want you to know whatever you need, legal support, financial help, a safe place to stay, the Chen family will provide it. You're one of us now, Eliza, and we take care of our own. Liz felt tears prick her eyes again. Family. She'd spent her whole life with just her mother, and then, after Catherine died alone. And now suddenly she had uncles, aunts, cousins, a whole network of people who shared her blood, her history, her fight. Thank you, she whispered. That means more than you know. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. The story exploded across national news. Investigative journalists descended on Ashford, digging into every corner of the university's history. More victims came forward, students from the Memorex 7 trial who'd been paid to stay silent, faculty who'd witnessed wrongdoing but been threatened into compliance. Helix Pharmaceuticals' stock price plummeted as their involvement became public. Criminal charges were filed. Civil suits followed. The whole corrupt edifice that had been built on the suffering of vulnerable students began to crumble. Liz threw herself into documenting it all. The Chronicle gave her a full feature spread which was picked up by major newspapers. She wrote about her mother, about David Chen, about the other victims. She wrote about institutional failure and the importance of believing survivors and the way power corrupts. Seb quietly withdrew from Ashford, not in shame but in resolution. He transferred to a state school, began volunteering at legal aid clinics, started the process of becoming the kind of lawyer who fights for people instead of covering up for them. He and Liz talked almost every day, their friendship deepening, even as they both acknowledged that anything more would have to wait until their lives were less chaotic. Maya finished her painting, The Forgotten Ones of Ashford, and it was displayed in a gallery show that drew national attention. She added new portraits: Eliza Hartwell, David Chen, all 15 victims of the Memorex 7 trial, their faces finally seen, their stories finally told. And slowly, painfully, the truth came out. All of it, 6 months later. The courtroom was packed. Liz sat in the front row between Marcus and Jennifer, with Maya and Seb on her other side. Behind them sat other victims, other families, all there to watch justice finally be served. Professor William Crane was convicted on charges of murder in the first degree for Eliza Hartwell's death, negligent homicide for David Chen's death, and numerous counts of conspiracy, fraud, and obstruction of justice. The judge sentenced him to life in prison without possibility of parole. Judge Richard Blackwood was convicted on charges of conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and accessory after the fact. His sentence, 25 years in federal prison. His law license permanently revoked. His legacy destroyed. Ashford University agreed to a settlement that would provide compensation to all victims of the Memorex 7 trial and their families. They also established the Eliza Hartwell and David Chen Memorial Scholarship Fund, providing full scholarships to students from disadvantaged backgrounds with a promise of ethical research practices and complete transparency. It wasn't enough. It could never be enough. But it was something. After the sentencing, they all gathered outside the courthouse. The press was there, cameras everywhere, but Liz had learned to tune them out. Your mother would be proud, Marcus said, putting a hand on her shoulder. So would David, Jennifer added. Liz looked at the courthouse, thinking about all the people who'd suffered in silence all the years of cover-ups and lies. Thinking about her mother driving to her death on that dark road, trying to do the right thing at last. I hope so, she said quietly. I really hope so. Seb appeared beside her, offering his hand. She took it, their fingers intertwining naturally. They still hadn't defined what they were to each other, still hadn't moved beyond friendship, But the possibility was there waiting for them when they were ready. What now, he asked. Now, Liz looked at her family, her chosen family, and her blood family all mixed together, all supporting each other. Now we keep fighting. There are other Ashfords out there, other institutions covering up their crimes, other people who need someone to believe them and fight for them. That sounds exhausting, Maya said, but she was smiling. Probably, Liz agreed. But we're not doing it alone anymore. They stood together on the courthouse steps facing the cameras and the questions in the future. Not as victims, but as survivors. Not as lone fighters, but as a team. The truth had cost them everything. But it had also given them something precious. Each other justice, in the knowledge that silence could be broken, that power could be held accountable, that even the darkest secrets could be brought into the light. Liz looked up at the sky, clear and bright, the kind of October day her mother had always loved. She thought she could almost feel Catherine's presence, approving, relieved, finally at peace. "We did it, Mom," she whispered. "We told the truth, just like you wanted." And somewhere in the autumn wind, she could have sworn she heard a whisper back, "I know, baby, I know. I'm so proud of you." 1 year later, Liz stood in front of a gravestone that hadn't existed before. The Chen family had arranged for David to be exhumed from the unmarked grave where the university had buried him and given him a proper memorial. The headstone read, "David Chen, 1976-1995, beloved son, brother, friend. He died fighting for the truth. His daughter carries on his legacy." Beside it, a new stone, Catherine Marie Hartwell, 1974-20. Loving mother, brave survivor. She never stopped fighting. Her daughter never stopped believing. Liz placed flowers on both graves, white roses for her mother, cherry blossoms for the father she'd never known. Seb stood beside her, his hand warm in hers. They'd been officially together for 3 months now, taking it slow, building something real on a foundation of truth instead of secrets. "Hi, Dad," Liz said softly. "Hi, Mom. I wanted you both to know that we won. The case closed, the guilty are in prison, and your stories are being told. Students at Ashford learn about you now, about what happened and why it matters. You're not forgotten anymore. You'll never be forgotten." She knelt down, touching both stones. "I wish I'd known you, Dad. Uncle Marcus tells me stories how smart you were, how kind, how you always stood up for people. I hope I'm like you. I try to be." She moved to her mother's stone. "And Mom, I understand now why you stayed quiet, why you were so afraid. You were protecting me the only way you knew how. I don't blame you for any of it. I just wish you could have seen how it ended. Justice. Finally." Seb squeezed her hand. "They see it," he said quietly. "Somehow I think they see it." Behind them, Maya was sketching, capturing this moment for a new piece. Marcus and Jennifer stood at a respectful distance, giving Liz privacy, but letting her know they were there if she needed them. Family, truth, justice, love. Her mother had lost so much fighting for the truth. Her father had died for it. But in the end, the truth had won. And Liz Eliza Chen Hartwell, daughter of heroes, fighter of lies, believer in justice, she would carry that truth forward. For them, for all the victims. For everyone who needed someone to believe them and fight for them. The autumn wind rustled through the trees, carrying the scent of falling leaves and new beginnings. "I love you both," Liz whispered. "Thank you for everything you gave me. I'll make you proud. I promise." And as she stood and walked back toward her family, toward Seb and Maya and Marcus and Jennifer and everyone who'd fought beside her, she felt lighter than she had in years. The past couldn't be changed. The pain couldn't be erased. But the truth had been told, the guilty had been punished, and the future stretched before her full of possibility. That was enough. That was everything. She was Catherine's daughter. She was David's daughter. And she was free.